2, 1.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Guy Page with the Vermont Daily Chronicle, Friday at 4. I'm here with our social media director, Paul Bean, our intrepid engineer, Caleb. Say hi, Caleb.
How's it going, everybody?
So, we have a show for you. First of all, I want to tell you about our sponsors. I want to tell you about another huge breaking story. And then we're going to get into what I think most of you have tuned in for, which is the latest and update, or rather sobering update, on the announced pedophile event in Vermont for this weekend. So, we are sponsored by Ranmark Corporation, which operates Village Homes. They are start-to-finish builders of new housing all across Vermont. Great folks, great homes. I know them both. If you're looking for a new home, really strongly recommend you contact Randy Rulo at Ranmar and the Village Homes. So, the second huge breaking story that I thought I'd tell you about, police have arrested the son of a Paulette Select Board member who, along with his wife and stepson, were murdered on September 15th at their home. Brian Crossman, Select Board member, triple homicide, and police just today arrested Brian Crossman Jr., his son from his first marriage, and in this awful triple homicide. You can read all about that on VermontDailyChronicle.com. But back to our lead story. The announced, and we now know, very real plans for pedophiles to gather in Vermont this weekend for, as they say, bingo, campfire, socializing, and they say also some political discussion. I think we'll be talking a little bit about that too, about sort of the politics of all this and what they're looking for. So bills that you can frankly be on the lookout for if you want to follow this. Aaron Warner, who has reported on this for Vermont Daily Chronicle this week, will be joining us in 10-15 minutes. And Aaron, besides being a good reporter, has some professional experience working with sex offenders, and I think he's got some insights into this world that most of us we try not to think about very much. But Aaron has lived in this professionally for a while, among his many other life experiences. So certainly, so a lot of people were wondering, was this a hoax? I know Paul was just...
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my first thought, because people were telling me about it earlier this week, and I thought, I don't know if this is a story we want to touch. What if it's just a complete fake distraction or something? That was my initial thought, anyway.
That's right. And certainly, that's something every good reporter's got to think about, and which is why when we covered this story, we did not say, hey, there's this thing that's happening, and da-da-da-da-da. We went to the police. We went to the selectmen meeting in Marshfield. We asked the governor what he knew about it, and we basically just said, okay, this is what the officials are saying about this. That was and left open, is this happening or is this not? We had as you can read on Vermont Daily Chronicle, we had the original website announcement of this, the very real, very seriously put out announcement that there would be, beginning September 19th, what they call MAP, which is the new buzzword acronym, Minor Attracted Persons, known to most of us as pedophiles. Although in their website, we found out there is a website, they sort of dispute that, sort of not, that characterization. So, here's what we found out. Not a hoax. Definitely not a hoax. This was a real planned event. apparently now canceled, called off due to concerns likely, although not confirmed, likely about public response. At 2:03 p.m. today, the Vermont Daily Chronicle received an email from Percy Shelley. Percy Shelley, I believe, is a pseudonym because there was an English author of the same name who wrote a book called Matilda, which is about father-daughter incest. Okay, so I'm kind of guessing that's probably a pseudonym. But anyway, Percy Shelley, the communications officer of the MAP Union, and they have a website and discuss all the questions that people want to know about MAP and about pedophiles. So they sent us an email, and I'll read some of it to you. And it says, "Hello, my name is Percy, and MU, that is the MAP Union, is an international organization representing the interests of minor-attracted people and their allies. I'm writing this time with a press release from MU regarding the MAP camp that was planned for this weekend in Vermont that you have already written about." Yeah, we were the first ones to write about this, the first media. In fact, when I asked the governor at the press conference, and he knew it was coming because I told his press secretary, and he kind of punted to the state police. But I saw some of the other reporters kind of writing down, yeah, okay. And indeed, V.T. Digger has followed up with a couple of days later with some coverage. And we can talk a little bit about that, too, about the media coverage of this. And what does it mean that the media is covering it the way that they are in Vermont?
Or not covering it. Or
indeed, Paul, not covering it. Because there really hasn't been an awful lot of coverage on this.
You'd think there would be, wouldn't you?
It is a rather intensely discussed issue online.
Well, what I'll say, Guy, I think that the information that is coming out that we just received might bring reason for some of the mainstream outlets to take this seriously. So maybe we should continue on that point because it's some pretty damning information as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So, Percy writes, "I'm writing this time with a press release from MU regarding the MAP camp," and then goes on to say, "We want to strongly," and see, the thing is, MAP Unit, is expressing outrage. They are outraged, but they're not outraged at the event. They're certainly not outraged at pedophilia. They're outraged at the critics. Specifically, a lot of social media. There was in Plainfield especially, and we don't know that this event, we don't know for sure that this event was planned for Plainfield. There's a lot of Plainfield chatter that there was, and also we do know for a fact that police were added special, sent a lot of manpower to the school in Plainfield and Marshfield, to Twinfield School. So they apparently took it seriously enough that they put folks there. So one could be forgiven for saying that, yep, indeed it was the, as was mentioned at a select board meeting, it was the Onion River Campground where this was supposed to be happening. The owner of Onion River Campground, former owner of a rabble-rouser in a
downtown Montpelier,
right? Came to the meeting and denied that the event was going to be happening. Okay, for what that's worth. Okay. But anyway, they were outraged. They said, "We want to strongly condemn the calls to violence from cyberbullies in some sections of the public, while applauding the mature stance taken by local law enforcement." See, the police were saying First Amendment rights. If people want to gather and talk about something, that is a First Amendment right protected. Okay? So, and from my understanding of the First Amendment, if people want to talk about how they feel about about having sex with minors, to some degree, I guess that is a First Amendment right. Where it can cross the line really, really quickly is where the First Amendment, the written First Amendment, including like pictures on most things, is also protected. With on the issue of child sex, it's not. Child pornography is a big, big crime. The feds send people away for more years than a lot of Vermont murderers get for anything to do with child pornography. The argument being is that if you are consuming child pornography in any way, it is a strong indicator that you will then also offend on a real live breathing child. And so they're just fine with that. Okay? Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly point out, now we bring up the topic of the federal government, the FBI, the Federal Bureau Investigators, they have these symbols here. Caleb's going to pull them up. So this is what they have on the internet to tell us folks what they have classified as symbolism that pedophiles use to symbolize to other pedophiles. Basically, their supposed, what they refer to as a sexual orientation. However, we don't necessarily agree with that. But if you take a look at the top right one, Caleb, if you want to go back to that one real quick, the top right one, you can see it's like a weird kind of spirally looking little thing. And if you look at the Map Camp logo, at the very top, right above the A, you can see that very similar little swirl that they use in the sun to make that little symbol to their fellow friends. It's a safe place here for you all. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because, I mean, look, kind of like I was saying, anytime you hear stuff like this, you're always. But then if you take a look at the top guy, Caleb, come on.
I did it again.
You did it again.
Okay, I'll turn off my phone, Paul. I'll try to turn off my phone. There we go. I give Paul the microphone and look what happens. It's okay. All his fault, everyone. No, it's not.
It happens. Guy's fault. It happens. But I guess the point I'm saying, though, this is always, anytime you hear about, child sex trafficking and child pornography and pedophiles and this kind of stuff, people always tend to just go off the rails with it. And I think that in this case, they're talking about all of the backlash that they're receiving. Well, yeah, you're receiving backlash. Now that we found out it's real, you're definitely going to receive some very serious backlash. Right. This isn't just referring to the people that are upset about this as cyber bullies. Are you kidding me? You guys are pedophiles. Anyway.
Right. It's our First Amendment right also to call out the act of pedophilia and what it is. So, reading a little bit more from a view behind the curtain, what was going on. Map Camp, says Percy Shelley of Map Union, was a planned social gathering for minor attracted people that was scheduled to be held this weekend at a campground in Vermont. It was first recognized in July of this year, so this is going back to July, by a civil rights group, MEDAL, which is Map, Equality, Dignity, and Liberation. Okay, there's another organization to look at. If you see this coming up in press reports, you know what that's about. But soon after became independently run. So started by one organization, but then became independently run. Preparation for the camp seemed to be going smoothly until bullies on X, formerly Twitter, caught wind of the event and decided to launch an attack against it, doxing some of the people involved in the camp, and in the process, and jeopardizing their safety. They claim that many of the comments on X involved death threats and incitements to violence, comments that would be deemed hate speech if directed at any other minority group. Okay. Local law enforcement authorities were also contacted, but after looking into the event, they concluded that no illegal activities were planned and that the MAPs involved were free to exercise their right to free speech and association. Now, you had mentioned something. We have heard a report. Let's put it this way, Paul, that the feds think that this might actually still be going on in some capacity.
Yeah, well, I think at this point, I've been so hesitant to dive into this story, to, find out the truth here, that now that I hear this piece of it, I'm beginning to wonder maybe that really is true, because we were told by somebody who, I'm not going to name names, but they were speaking to a state police officer, and they did say that the state police are monitoring the situation very closely, as well as the federal government is now stepping in and potentially even looking to take action. What does that mean? What does that look like? I'm not really sure exactly. I will say, however, there seems like there's a whole lot going on right now pertaining to this subject. I don't know, nationally even too. When you look at this whole P. Diddy situation that we're hearing about, it's coming out. Do you know anything about that at all?
I just know he's a rapper. He got arrested. What was that about?
Sounds like there's like some sex trafficking situation going on, and federal government's getting involved. The FBI is heavily involved in the situation. I mean, I know that the FBI is doing like some helicopter training here in Vermont.
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe I'm just being.
You know what, Paul?
Maybe I'm just being a little silly.
First of all, that is a fact.
Yeah.
That is a fact. They announced this week that the feds, mostly in the Bennington-Windsor area,
yeah,
said, would be doing some training with the state police, the SWAT teams.
Yeah.
Would be working together and doing some training together, including FBI helicopters.
That's right. You're good. Just keep a little closer. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that any of this is necessarily related. It's just when you piece all of this together, I'm not one to say it's not out of my belief anymore. Nothing's too far to stretch the truth at this point with the situation. If it is as serious as I think it could be, and it's sounding more and more like it is, I mean, these people are really out in the open about, like, they think they're the victims. They think they're the ones that are in the right, and that we're bullies. We're cyber bullies for being outraged. I mean, this is just ridiculous. We do have quite a few comments, by the way, Guy, if you want me to.
Yes, but no true cyber bullies, if you will.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think that there's truth to that, right? There's a whole lot of outrage being felt by many of us, and I'm trying to be as on the fence as I can, but I just can't. I can't. Yeah. So Christina Wiley writes, I hope the whole Plainfield location wasn't a distraction for it being held somewhere else in Vermont this weekend. That's a good point. Could be. Peggy Holt writes, no, it was Onion River Campground. She was good friends with a map. He frequented the campground, and he first posted the event. Guy, can you add to that?
I do know I've seen posts of another individual who lives in the Barrie area, who is definitely of the pedophile persuasion. It's absolutely out there by his own posts. And now, what we don't have, and Aaron may have more on this when he calls in, but what we don't have is a firm link between this individual and this planned event and the Onion River campground. We have a lot of sort of online hearsay and claims that may be absolutely accurate, but we don't. I don't have. To me, they're not factual, and therefore cannot be published in the Chronicle.
Annie Mae Bricky writes, it should be noted the body of a 13-year-old boy was found at the campground last year. It was ruled suicide that many do not believe. We should be questioning why there's a 13-year-old boy at the campground last year. I don't know if those situations are related. We don't know. This is all just information that, I think we added that as part of the story that we put up on the Vermont Daily Chronicle. So, it's pertinent information.
It would be interesting to look into that and to see what the circumstances were. Campgrounds are campgrounds. People come and go.
I think we have Aaron on the line here. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of him, Guy, if you want to.
Okay. Glad to do that. And when you do, we'll bring him in.
Hello.
Hi, Aaron.
Aaron, you're live with us on Creemee Cast. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Doing just fine. Hey, Aaron, thanks for your great reporting this week. And I wondered if one of the things you possibly could bring up for us is, because someone was just asking, one of our commenters, do we know of any real link between this person in Barrie, who we're not naming out of abundance of caution and all that, between this person and the planned event, which I'm not sure if you've been listening, Aaron, but it is now confirmed by the MAP Union that yes, this event was planned, it was going to go ahead, and then it was canceled.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the sense of like a direct link, my understanding was from that Alaric the Barbarian article that the person from Barrie apparently posted it on some of their social media. So posted the website that ultimately got archived,
right?
Pulled down and then found in the archives. So,
and this person was believed to have been a friend, associate of the owner of the campground, and 2 plus 2 equaling.
I would say it's beyond believed to be, because having been on the Plainfield Facebook site, dozens of people have reported them being friends, and other people knew this person. Know that they're supposedly best friends. I've heard the term best friend used multiple times by different people, so it's kind of undeniable that they at least knew each other. My understanding is that the owner of the campground, who also owns or is part owner of the chocolate shop, patronized the person from Barrie who does watercolor art. Mm-hmm. So there's multiple links there. Okay. And then of course, if you look at the nature of the event, and then you look at the person's Instagram page where they brag openly about being a MAP and being pro pedophilia, it's kind of hard not to put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. Okay. One of the location of this at the Onion River Campground, the alleged location. Now the MAP Union people respond to this.
Sorry, I just hit my mic, guys.
The MAP Union people respond to this. They say some of the outrage mob. That's okay. I guess that's people. Okay. Some of the outrage mob on social media have pointed out that the campground rumored to be hosting the event is located near a school, yet none of the promotional material for the event show any awareness of that fact. That is not a denial, is it? If you say, well, yeah, the outrage mob says it's near a school, but, quote unquote, none of the promotional material for the event show any awareness of the fact, does that sound like a denial to you?
No, I mean, I read the thing that the MAP Union person sent you, Percy Shelley, and the equivocation in that list of explanations was ridiculous. So, they're talking about people who have a declared affinity for having sex with children, and yet they're pretending like being near a school or being anywhere around children is a non-event. I mean, it's just, again, I mean, it was a relatively lengthy piece that he sent you, and I just got done reading it, so I don't have it committed to memory. But the amount of equivocation and just tone deafness from him when he talked about, like, the Vermont State Police are the adults in the room, and these are going to be adult-to-adult conversations, completely ignores the fact that what we're talking about is adults talking to adults about criminal offenses having sex with children, right? And I couldn't help but also notice the language that he used was very much, they're the victims, they were the ones that were being persecuted, never once acknowledging that this is criminal behavior.
That's right.
Yeah, and I just want to add, too, one of the big parts of this is, it was not confirmed that it's the Onion River Campground. Meanwhile, this person with the MAP Union's coming out and saying, well, they didn't know on the promotional website that any of it, they didn't say anything about it being near a school. They didn't know that it was near a school. So obviously it was at Onion River Campground.
It would, yeah.
Well,
I mean, wouldn't you say that confirms it? I mean, I don't know.
No. What I would say, again, it depends on how much confirmation you want, but if circumstantial evidence is enough to build a case, you have the fact that the website said that it was a woman-owned campground, so Jacqueline owns the campground, so there's one piece. The second thing is it had a bathhouse. Well, her campground has a bathhouse. And then the third thing is it has a pond. Well, her campground has a pond. So we're 3 for 3 on that. Okay, then you have the relationship, the strong relationship between these two people, and then now we have the MAP Union coming out saying, yes, an event was planned called MAP Camp there in Vermont. So, I mean, I don't know how much more you need other than to walk up on a group of pedophiles at the campground and say, "Are you guys here for the map camp?" Right? I mean,
So, yeah, good point, Aaron. So, Aaron, you have done, refresh my memory, you have done some work with sex offenders and pedophiles on a professional basis.
so I was a.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Tell us a little
Okay.
bit about that.
Sure. So when I got out of college, I was living in Eugene, Oregon, and I responded to a help wanted ad because I was looking for work. And when I showed up to the interview, I was told by the person that it was a house of highly functioning, developmentally disabled pedophiles. So it was 5 adult developmentally disabled pedophiles. And they needed, guys my size to be able to restrain them if needed. If you know anything about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that was a story based off of the sanitarium in Oregon that was shut down after a photojournalistic expose showed that they were doing Nazi-like experiments on the patients. And so when they shut down the sanitarium, they had to take the people and put them into like disabilities into homes, and they were essentially trying to integrate them into society. But with the pedophiles, you could only do that so much. So it was 5 guys living in a home in Eugene, Oregon, and they needed staff there to administer meds, work with the medical staff, and then also basically to act like a chaperone to the guys. We tried to help them, go out and have activities, but the thing is you could only do very limited amount of activities in public because anytime we were anywhere near a child, we needed to immediately bring them away from the child and back to the house. They couldn't even look at kids, or they would have behaviors, right? And so, we would try to take them grocery shopping at a time where we would figure there wouldn't be kids there, and then we'd be out grocery shopping, come around the corner, there's a mom with her infant baby, and all of a sudden, our guy, he starts, having a minor fit, and we'd have to take him back to the vehicle, bring him back to the house, and then just wait for him to have an episode. And then whatever the episode was, it could be anything from slamming doors or yelling. And we just had to de-escalate however we could. And so, yeah. And I mean, one of the offenders actually molested another one of the clients, a girl that was in a wheelchair in another one of the houses when I was there. So, I mean, it's not like, it's not like it's an easy thing. Once pedophilia is, essentially diagnosed, there's an almost 0% chance that the person is going to recover. It's like alcoholism. They're just always going to be a pedophile. And you don't want to put them in a situation where they can. But it's worse than alcohol, right? So
what causes?
I did that for about 3 years.
What is the cause of pedophilia?
The cause of pedophilia?
Yeah, what makes a person a pedophile?
Well, I mean, the most common causal link is someone's molested as a child, and they're molested in such a way that the perpetrator tries to normalize the behavior, make it seem like it's romantic and acceptable and it's about pleasure. So they go through the grooming process, which usually, like with any cult, you start with love bombing, you start with, disarming the person, disarming other people around them. And then you start with suggestion, usually verbal suggestion that leads to physical suggestion. And then eventually it gets right into the actual act where the child is violated. And then, of course, the child has no idea what's going on. They're typically scared. And that's when the pedophile uses intimidation and threats and things like that. And, that's one of the many reasons why it's a crime, right? Because the entire process is criminal in nature.
So let me read to you something that the MU people said about this event anyway. This wasn't some sex offender crime ring where young children were to be bought and sold at auction. If such a thing even exists, none of the maps I've met know anything about it. The camp was merely a group of adults with a particular sexuality who hoped to meet other adults with the same sexuality in a relaxed environment, providing support and fellowship. What kind of support are we talking about here? What would that look like?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing about his statement is he doesn't talk about it being rehabilitative or an event that's therapeutic trying to help these guys out of this behavior. the whole thing implies that pedophiles are going to get together with other pedophiles and talk about the wonders of pedophilia.
Right.
Right? And he just uses deliberately obfuscating language by saying adults with other adults. Okay, fine, adults with other adults who like to have sex with children, right? So, I mean, you can easily go through that guy's statement and point out all of the attempts to manipulate through language to try and make it seem like what they're doing is a perfectly acceptable adult behavior. It's not. It's a crime. It is a crime. It should remain a crime. It should always be a crime. I'm a little disturbed that the guy was so complimentary of the Vermont State Police. I would like to see the police come out and take a stronger stance on this. I didn't hear that. I haven't heard that. You know, and we're in a very slippery slope here. Like, they are pushing hard to normalize this stuff, and they do it through manipulative language, which, if I may, that's exactly what Marxists do. And you know, these people essentially are Marxists.
Yeah. Huh? Did you find in your experience that there was a connection there, or there's a political aspect to this?
No, I know that Marxists are pro pedophilia.
Okay.
Yeah. So Herbert Marcuse was big. He wrote a book called Eros and Civilization. He was a Marxist from the Frankfurt School that was in the United States. Gail Rubin. She wrote about it academically. They're trying to get it into the academic literature, the medical literature.
Speaking of getting into the literature, Aaron, I have read recently that in advertising, there has been a somewhat subtle push towards normalizing child sexual behavior in some advertising and some just sort of media type stuff. Do you know anything about that?
In advertising?
Right, advertising and
Are you talking about Balenciaga?
Yeah.
I think I am, actually, now that you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, Balenciaga went over the top. I mean, it was like bondage type stuff with kids, and they got called out on it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff associated with Balenciaga. Balenciaga is a high-end fashion designer out of New York City,
right? And
they've done at least 3 different ad spreads that were blatantly pedophilic in nature.
Now, speaking of, you mentioned the police. I will say that this Percy Shelley, pseudonym person, says many MAPs have a legitimate fear of engaging with law enforcement. Even in a progressive state like Vermont, they are all too aware of the unwarranted arrests, sting operations, and other injustices that other oppressed minority groups have historically faced. Wow, just like black people.
That's some Marxist language right there, if I've ever heard it.
Actually, you're right about that. And are wary of even law enforcement responses that claim to be supportive of First Amendment rights. Hey, Paul, what do we have? Do we have any more comments?
Yeah, we do. Christopher Hurley writes, so it's a lot worse than we thought. Not only is it real, but they're lining up nationally and somewhat constitutionally protected. They're lining up as nationally and somewhat constitutionally protected, as long as they don't act out. Yeah, we've got a serious problem here. And you know what? We really do. We have to ask ourselves as Vermonters, is this something that we're okay with? I think we know the answer to that question.
So one of the things I was thinking is, okay, we're socializing, we're fellowshipping, we're being supportive. At what point does that cross the line when we're sitting around the campfire saying, you know, I actually, I don't have it with me because I'd hate to have a cop in our midst call me out. But as a matter of fact, I've got some pretty interesting literature that you might enjoy. So in other words, it's the soft sell that perhaps doesn't absolutely cross the line, but is getting there, and also maybe not only literature but true trafficking.
I don't know, Guy. I think the premise itself crosses the line. The premise itself. You know, you guys are there for this reason. That's crossing the line. Aaron, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I mean, I think the laws on the books need to get tougher when it comes to pedophiles and pedophilia. I think the fact that these groups are comfortable coming together and organizing, and, you know, Percy Shelley is some declared president for a pedophile group. I mean, that stuff used to be underground, and now they're starting to bring it out more. And it's because they have always been the caboose for the LGBTQ movement, and it's just we're at the last car on the train here.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's time for people to stand up. I think it's time for legislators to stand up and push to harden the stance on this, so that it remains something that is at worst in the shadows. I mean, we shouldn't do anything to make it easier, because at the end of the day, it is about protecting children. It's not about protecting somebody's constitutional rights. It's not about protecting somebody's free speech. This isn't a free speech issue, right? It's almost like terrorism, right? If so, are we going to say, hey, it's okay for terrorists to get together and talk about some sort of terrorist plot to overthrow the United States? No, those guys get arrested all the time for plotting to do things, right? It's a crime to plot terrorism. I think it should be seen in the same light.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So one of the legislative goals of this organization, MU, Paul, I guess I should have taken you up on that offer for the water, huh? Well, thank you very much. Little subtle hint there.
Hey, Paul, Paul, is there a way to get the microphone closer to Guy? Because I can't really make out what he's saying. It's kind of breaking up on me.
Is that any better, Aaron? Or is it a problem just with this? Okay. Well,
I'm not sure why it's not working very well for you. It should be fine, actually.
I think partly it's the location of the mic that I'm sort of taking it from the side here instead of from the front. But anyway, one of the legislative goals here is this MU group hates the registry. Just cannot stand the registry. They think it's unfair. It's all sorts of awful things to have a sexual registry. Which, of course, the registry is one way that both there is a state registry, there is a federal registry. It's one way that we, the authorities and individuals, because it's public record, can track people who have been convicted of sex crimes. So if we start seeing any legislation, federal or statewide, saying we need to weaken the registry, or we need to weaken the age limits on child sex, or we need to make it a misdemeanor instead of a felony or a lower class felony, we will know, okay, that agenda is being pushed. What do we have for comments, Paul?
Michael Drews writes, and this is maybe kind of an interesting point. He writes, "You should keep bipartisan politics out of the conversation. It's just not relevant. Pedophilia is a nonpartisan topic. Neither political side would be okay with it, and it has absolutely nothing to do with any political party. Pedophilia is a disease inside the mind. It's not a political thing. Nor should this map event be dragged into someone's political views to bolster their stance. It's wrong. It is always going to be wrong, but it doesn't reflect. But it does reflect a changing society, or a metric to the overall health of our society. If this is something people are actually attempting to normalize." I mean, I have a response to that, but maybe you have a more thoughtful one, Guy.
You're asking me if I have one?
Either of you, honestly. I mean, I know what I'd like to say, but I'm not so sure. It's,
say what you have. Say what you have.
Well, I just say they say it's pedophilia is a disease inside the mind. I mean, my opinion, in many respects, so is a certain political persuasion in this country right now. Just like Marxism. I mean, it's a mind virus. It's the same idea, but whatever.
What is the physical, chemical, drug treatment for pedophilia? Is there one?
The chemical drug treatment?
Yeah. Is there a medical approach?
Well, so I can tell you what they were doing with the guys in the house that I was in. They were doing things like ammonia spray up your nose, so it was a behavioral chemical treatment, right? So whenever somebody had the urge, they were encouraged to spray ammonia up their nose to give a negative feedback response. I think chemical castration is still pretty common use. So they essentially chemically castrate the individual so that they cannot, in that sense. And I think some of it has to do with like lowering testosterone levels, but I honestly don't know. I haven't really looked into the.
Give them estrogen or something. Give them female hormones or some sort of.
I can't make out what you're saying, Guy. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why, Guy. I have no idea. It's not.
How's his mic?
It sounds faint and gargled. Paul sounds just fine.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Not much better.
That's
Okay.
better?
Huh.
Not
Okay.
much better.
Not much better. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. We are going to have to get some new mics or something. Paul, what else do we have for comments here?
Dawn and Fancher writes, pedophiles are a danger to the LGBTQ community, like they are to all communities. They are no part of it. They are co-opting a language in attempts to tie pedophiles to the LGBTQ community. Put your neighbors in danger.
So distinction there, they're saying, between LGBTQ and
I
pedophiles?
would disagree. I think this person is unaware of the history of the LGBTQ community participating in trying to normalize this. Like I said, Gail Rubin and Judith Butler, those would be two people. Herbert Marcuse is another one. All of them very active in advancing rights when it was just L and G, and then bringing on the B, and then the Q, and then the T. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that they've been stacking new, orientations on, and then they just throw the plus on, which is, we're still unclear what that is, but it seems to be this kind of like never-ending mathematical equation intended to just add on whatever. So, you can say, and I think a lot of people want to believe, that the pedophiles have co-opted it, but if you look at the leaders of the movement going way back, like I said, even to Herbert Marcuse, and even all the way back into the 1920s, George Lukács in Hungary was the first guy that really pushed sex education. Same with Sigmund Freud. So, it would be nice if you could extricate the one from the other, but the truth is it's kind of always been there, and that's why a lot of us have been warning about it.
Edward Bernays, too. Bernays is another name.
So the tail may be wagging the dog, but the dog's definitely wagging the tail, too.
So what I think is you have a bunch of people who have gotten into the LGBT movement for their own purposes, and they're not. So you have Gays Against Groomers who have come out and spoken out against it. You have Brandon Stralka who came out on the Walk Away movement. So there are quite a few who disavow it, but I just want people to be clear. It's not like the movement never included this and never intended for it. Leaders of the movement absolutely have, and that's well documented in James Lindsay's research.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. What else do we have, Paul, for comment?
We have a comment from Susie Stone. She writes, this is absolutely terrifying and disturbing. The sexy child quote comment on the MAP website confirms the intentions were bad. We have that ready. We have that pulled up.
Read that, Paul.
Yeah, so dehydration. So common risks with hiking and other outdoor activities. Dehydration, exhaustion, sprained ankles, back injuries, injuries from animals, falling rocks, blisters, getting lost, inside bites and stings, heat exhaustion, falling and tripping because you were distracted by a sexy minor instead of watching where you were going. I mean, come on now, folks.
Wow. Yeah.
Come on.
But it's okay that it's near a school because we shouldn't worry about that. Paul, what else do we have for comments?
Which is basically, I think we have, this is Dylan Mears, we have the red flag law running after folks with guns. What about stopping crimes against children before they happen?
Whoa. Huh.
That's a good point.
Interesting.
And Jamelyn Paquette, she writes, that's disgusting. Kids are regularly on those trails by the school, and I think that's why you see so much outrage in the community from parents.
See, they would know.
They would
live
know.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all for comments. I mean, there's more. I could. Yeah, I guess there's. I'm hearing that there is problems with your audio, guy. I don't hear it on my end. It's hard for me to tell. I have no idea.
Okay.
The death of the kids. This is Jessamine Stone. The death of the kid in the woods is part of a different story, I believe, or at least the father seems to think so. And then this is a defense from Michelle Edelman McCormick. She writes, whoa, that's just BS. The LGBTQ community has and always will reject these pedophiles. The assertion that they are in the same group is wildly offensive.
Well, and for some, that's probably true, but for some others, probably not.
I mean, I cited the sources of the people who are part of the movement who have been pushing for it. So if this person disagrees, they can look into James Lindsay's research. He's got it on his New Discourses page. It's unfortunate, but I mean, I guess you could take the position that some of the leaders of the movement were the ones that were pro-pedophilia. Not all of them were, but I think it's been wrapped into it all along, and people are just in denial about it. And that's not to say that people who are, in same-sex attracted relationships or trans or whatever are pro-pedophilia. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is it's been present all along, whether people want to see that or not.
Right. That's a good distinction. Well, with the mic troubles and with our comments pretty much wrapped up, I think we are going to call this to a close. Paul, any last thoughts for you?
I just want to say, it's like I said, Guy, from the beginning, I thought this was fake, the story. I had a lot of people messaging me about it. It seemed like a big hoax and a distraction. And part of me still does wonder, are we spending a lot of time on this issue? I mean, it is definitely news, and it's important, and it's worrisome, and it's disgusting. But, I hope that we don't have to spend a lot more time covering issues like this here in Vermont, because there's a lot more important stuff to worry about. Well, actually, there isn't more important stuff to worry about, because this is kind of paramount. However, it does take away from the serious problems, and I think that's the whole point. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you all, and thank you, Randmark Corporation, for sponsoring the show, and thank you, Aaron, for calling in, and Caleb for engineering all of this, and thank you, Paul, and we